All right, it's Friday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We made it to the end of the week. A little bruised, a little battered from last night, from yesterday afternoon. But we're here, and it's a Friday here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I got a lot of things I want to talk to you about, so I want to rush through the preliminaries so we can kind of jump into everything else. Click the like button and click the subscribe. Do that, and we can move on. I very much appreciate it. You know, I'll skip all the preamble and all that kind of stuff. It's Friday. You've been hearing me say this for 5 days this week. You know, four days leading into today, plus a couple of live streams. We went live after the Georgia Tech game on Wednesday. That was a lot of fun. We went live after the Duke game yesterday. That was not so much fun. And the reality is, I don't have anything more to say about that game. You know, you can go check out right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If you scroll around, you can find the live streams. They're all archived there, and you can listen to it. It's a post-game show. A lot of post-game comments from fans, comments and questions, my thoughts on the game, your thoughts on the game. You can find it all right there. And I don't even think we really need to. I don't know if we need to or not. I don't want to rehash it today. I don't have anything more to say about it. I mean, it boils down to Pitt played like crap, and Duke is really good and played an almost perfect game. And that's a terrible confluence for Pitt, because it results in a 27-point loss that felt like it was about 50. It's a terrible matchup. Duke's a really good team. They're playing at a high level right now. They're really coming together, and I think they're going to have a lot of success in the postseason. Now, I say all that, and they might go out and lose to Miami tonight. Basketball is weird like that. But Duke just dominated Pitt. And I don't have anything more to say about that game. I really don't. And I don't feel like having the debate over was the season a success or not, although inevitably we're going to have those conversations a lot, I think, over the next few weeks. And I also don't know if Pitt's going to make the NCAA tournament. I don't know what they're going to announce on Sunday night. I don't think it's a lock. I think they will, but that's purely a guess on my part. Pure speculation. I have no idea if they're going to make it. And all the people telling you that they know that they're going to make it, I mean, half of them are going to be right and half of them are going to be wrong. And the ones who are right are going to tell you that they knew all along and it was an obvious call and the committee did exactly what they should do. And the ones who are wrong are either going to run away from their predictions or they're going to tell you that they were right and the committee got it wrong. I don't care. We'll find out on Sunday night. It's, depending on when you watch this video, anywhere from 48 to 60 hours away. And so we'll find out then. And we'll talk about it then. But in the wake of a 27-point loss, ending Pitt's run in the ACC tournament, well, as I sit down here on Friday, and I don't have anything more to say about that game, and I don't have anything to say about the NCAA tournament chances, I thought, you know what, we do something a little bit different just to send you into the weekend on a different kind of note. 10 good things about Pitt basketball. 10 good things about Pitt basketball that you might lose sight of, that might be easy to forget about, in the wake of a 30-point loss, where they were dominated from the very start. Literally from, buzzer to buzzer, they were dominated. So let's not talk about that game. Let's forget about it. Burn the tape. 10 good things about Pitt basketball right now. Okay? This should make you feel better. Number 10. 20 wins. 22 wins. I don't think we should overlook this or dismiss this or pretend like it doesn't exist or pretend like it doesn't matter. I counted them up. In the first 86 seasons of Pitt basketball from 1905 to 1990, or the 1905-06 season through 1990-91, Pitt had exactly 8 seasons with 20 wins. Now, they didn't always play a lot of games, but 8 times in the first 86 seasons, they won 20-plus games. Now, they went on a run after that, 2001 through the 2013-14 season. They won 20-plus games 13 out of 13 times. 14-15, they didn't. They fell short of the 20-win number, but in 15-16, they returned. So they got 20-plus wins in 14 out of 15 seasons. And we got a little spoiled by that. We came to think that it was just expected. It was automatic, that you don't have to do much to get to 20 wins. You just roll the ball out on the court and you're going to get to 20 wins. The real question is what you do beyond that. That's how we started thinking around here. And then we went through a 6-year drought where Pitt did not win 20 games. And we were reminded, or at least we should have been reminded, how difficult reaching that number actually is. That you actually do have to be in the upper tiers of the sport to win 20 games, and certainly to do it with any kind of consistency. Breaking that streak of sub 20 seasons, breaking that streak of not winning 20 games is big. And winning 22 is even bigger. Prior to the run from 2001 through the 2013-14 season, Pitt had just 4 seasons with 22 wins. So you're talking about a total of 17 seasons in Pitt's 118-year history. 17 seasons, in a 118-year history. 17 seasons with 22 wins or more. This being number 18. That's remarkable to me. That's notable to me. That's significant. And I don't think it should be ignored or dismissed. That's a good thing. This team got back to that. And I talked about it when they got to 20 wins and they were approaching 20 wins. I talked about how 20 wins is a big deal. I talked about how it's important because that stands as sort of a just like for a running back getting to 1,000 yards or a receiver getting to 1,000 yards or a quarterback throwing for 3,000 yards or a basketball player scoring 1,000 points in his career. I mean, these are sort of benchmarks that are well established and understood as being a marker that you are good. You did good things. You had a good year. Winning 20 games and winning 22. That's important. Number 9. Federico, the triplets, as they call themselves. Federico, Jorge Diaz-Graham, and Guillermo Diaz-Graham. No matter what you thought in yesterday's game, and you didn't see a lot of Federico, you saw a lot of the Diaz-Graham twins, you can't tell me that you didn't enjoy watching these 3 guys all season. I mean, you can't. I can't believe, and I know it's true that you enjoyed watching these guys because I saw all the comments in Twitter and I read all the comments on the message board and all the comments in the post game shows and the live streams and all the different things that we did. You love watching these guys because, first of all, they're these big, tall, lanky guys. They get pushed around, but they keep fighting. I made Chumbawamba a verb to describe how the Diaz-Graham twins truly do get knocked down and then get back up again. And we saw them develop and progress so much from the beginning of the season to where they are right now. I mean, particularly when Federico was in his hot streak. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable to see the progress that he made over the course of the season. And all 3 guys have tantalizing futures where you think about what they're going to be next year and the year after that at Pitt. And you think, boy, if they could add some strength, they could be really good because their instincts, particularly the Diaz-Graham twins, their instincts on the court are really strong. And they certainly they're not intimidated by anyone, often to their own physical discomfort. Maybe sometimes I think if they were a little intimidated, they might make it through the games without getting banged around a little bit more. And they can make shots, they can dribble. And Federico, just his emergence to at one point in late February, they were talking on TV broadcasts about how he could be an ACC Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Who would have ever thought that before the season? It was a remarkably fun thing to watch these guys develop over the year. Number 8 thing that you should be happy about with Pitt basketball, or number 8 good thing about Pitt basketball right now, this incoming recruiting class. Marlon Barnes and Jalen Lowe and Carlton Carrington. These are 3 good players, particularly the guards, particularly Lowe and Carrington. These are guys who are going to contribute next year, and they're going to play. And, transfers are going to have to come in. They're going to have to bring in transfers. There's no question about it. That's part of college basketball and college sports. But Carrington and Lowe to go with Dior Johnson, you're going to have a talented, young and inexperienced, but talented backcourt next year. I don't know if any of those guys is a Judah Mintz in terms of their impact as a freshman, but they're going to play. And I think they're going to play a lot, and I think they're going to play well. These are good players coming in. This is one of Capel's best, on paper recruiting classes. I think when you look at it and look at these guys as they're coming in, you say, man, Barnes, Carrington, and Lowe, 3 good basketball players. And guys who are going to see the court and should be able to help this team quite a bit next year. It should be encouraging for the future. And of course, you're going to have to fill out that group with transfers. You're going to have to add a couple of key transfers. It's always a question, well, can you do well in transfers? How well can you do? And that brings me to number 7 on my list of 10 good things about Pitt basketball. The transfers. And never mind what you saw yesterday. Never mind that one game. We watched 33 games of this team this year. And in most of those 33, Nelly Cummings, Greg Elliott, and Blake Hinson were a big part of the success that Pitt had. Big part. Blake Hinson becomes the 1,000-point scorer during his time here at Pitt. And he's the leading scorer on the team. And he's this big, tight end of a power forward, stretch forward, who can knock down threes. Sometimes he gets a little emotional. Sometimes his temperament gets the better of him, and I think sometimes he loses his composure a little bit. And I think that was the case yesterday. You saw his limited minutes as a result. But he's a weapon out there. And he's a unique weapon that not a lot of teams have. And when he gets going, it could be a whole heck of a lot of fun to watch, because he'll shoot from the logo confidently and repeatedly, and he'll make quite a few of those. Greg Elliott. Well, let's go to Nelly Cummings next. And I mean, this is the kind of story people love. This is a hometown kid who he goes away because the hometown school doesn't want him. And so he goes and plays other places and works himself up to the level where the hometown school says, yeah, actually, you can play for us. And he comes in and not only just gets a jersey and a scholarship, but comes in and becomes a major contributing piece of the team's success. I mean, bringing Pitt basketball back to that 20-win level, a whole lot of it had to do with Nelly Cummings as the point guard. And the joy he took in the success that Pitt had probably, surpasses the joy that any of these guys had. And I think they all truly cherished the success that Pitt was having. But I think it meant the most to Nelly Cummings. And I mean, that's the kind of story that fans love, for the local guy to get a chance at to want to play at the local school, and then to get that chance and to excel in that role. And then Greg Elliott, big game against Georgia Tech, not a lot of impact against Duke, not a lot of an impact against Notre Dame or Miami. But over the course of the season, his energy and spirit on the court, it was infectious. And I think his teammates certainly fed off of that. I think his coaching staff fed off of it. And I think the fans fed off on it. He became a fan favorite because of that energy, because of that joy that he plays with. And I think people came to love it. And there were times he was frustrating. I don't know why he continues to be the inbounds man late in game situations, or in late game situations. But the energy, though, is undeniable. And so I think when you look at Jeff Capel bringing in transfers for next year, filling out the current returning roster and the recruiting class with transfers, you have to be at least a little bit encouraged by how well they did this year. All right, number 6 on my list of good things about Pitt basketball. And this is one that I don't think, I think people did talk about for a little bit, but I don't think it's one you should ever really forget. Milan Brown. All right, Milan Brown. He was given the Bob Bradley Spirit Award at the beginning of the ACC tournament, or before Pitt's game on Wednesday, I think it was, whenever it was. Milan Brown, I mean, it's a miracle that this man is here today. No matter how disappointing that game yesterday may have been, the fact that Milan Brown was on the sidelines is a friggin' miracle. And I don't use that word lightly. I mean, I mean that in almost every sense possible. For him to suffer cardiac arrest, and basically in his office by himself, dutifully reported by Chris Carter in the Post-Gazette, did an amazing job with that story. But it was a worst case scenario. And by some kind of chance or some kind of fate, Amy Anderson is walking past that room, that office at that moment, at the exact moment that was needed for someone to walk past the office as that man lay on the floor. I mean, that's an incredible story. I mean, like, he got the biggest win of the season before any game was ever played. The fact that he was even in Greensboro, the fact that he was on the sidelines with this team this season is nothing short of a miracle. And when we talk about this season, I think that's part of the story. I think that's part of the story as much as anything else, because of how incredible it is. And if you want to be, tough, cynical, callous guy and say, a lot of good it did him yesterday when they lost to Duke by 30. I mean, have some perspective, man. This is an incredible, incredible story for him to be still with this team, for him to be with us. I don't think we should forget that or lose sight of it. Like I said, he won the Bob, or he was it's not won. It wasn't really a contest. It's not like something you vote for, but he was presented with the Bob Bradley Spirit and Courage Award from the Atlantic Coast Sports Media Association and the ACC. And that was just the most recent, or that was the latest award won by someone from Pitt. And that brings me to number 5 on my list of good things about Pitt this year. The Coach of the Year Award and the Sixth Man Award. And I bring these up for a number of reasons. And the first, maybe most of all, and I talked about this earlier this week, Jeff Capel and Nike Sibandi are absolutely deserving of these awards. I mean, really deserving of these awards, and obviously for the success that Pitt had this year, and the success that Nike Sibandi had individually, and everything that Capel gets credit for. As far as I've said it a million times, he put together a plan, he executed that plan, and he was able to regroup successfully after key pieces of that plan fell apart. But also for these two guys and what they've been through. And I'm not going to say that Capel doesn't bear responsibility for the last 4 years of Pitt basketball prior to this season. He does. But he also did run into some bad luck. And I think even the most cynical among us would have to acknowledge that there was some bad luck. Some of it he made himself. And some of it was just out of his control. And the thing about Jeff Capel is I think he's genuinely a good person. And it was unfortunate to see him go through the struggles of the last 4 seasons, whether they were of his making or not, because he was the kind of guy that you root for. You feel like you want him as the face of the basketball program. He's a smart guy. He's willing to speak on a wide variety of topics, and I think he'd speak intelligently, and thoughtfully and candidly. But he was missing that success. And so I think, a lot of congratulations to Jeff Capel just for everything this season has brought, from the success on the court and then the personal recognition with the Coach of the Year award. And Nike Sibandi's kind of the same thing. I mean, his story's been told often. I mean, you remember how the NCAA in Miami of Ohio kept him out of playing for half a season. And then he comes out last year, he tears his ACL. And he finally is able to get on the court, and he ends up being a major contributor to this team, all while maintaining a role off the bench. And, he was playing starter minutes, so it's not like he was, relegated to never getting on the court, but he was still coming off the bench. He was still not announced as a starter. He was still not going out with the first 5. But he embraced that role. He relished that role, and he excelled in that role and became a key piece for this team. And I think a lot of credit goes to both of those guys for persevering through some adversity and having the resilience to keep on with what they were doing and stick to what they were trying to do, and it paid off this year. Of course, you don't end up with, you probably don't end up with Coach of the Year or Sixth Man of the Year awards if your team isn't having success. Some of that is the victor getting the spoils, so to speak. And that brings me to number 4. The number 4 good thing about Pitt this year is being relevant. I mean, being relevant. And specifically in terms of, something like coming into the final week of the regular season in first place. Pitt was a central figure in the ACC this year. I think that sort of in and of itself is a statement that has to be, you have to dwell on that for a little bit and think about the fact that this team that had completely fallen out of relevance altogether, even locally, was a central, moving part in the ACC this season. As the top of the conference, juggled around and teams moved up and teams moved down, Pitt worked itself into the conversation, into being part of that. So much so that they came into the final week of the regular season needing just one win to clinch a share of the conference title. And yes, they fell short. And yes, that's disappointing. And yes, that was a missed opportunity and all that stuff. You're right about everything there. But the fact that they put themselves in that position, and this isn't just, wow, they were in first place in the first week of January. They were in first place heading into the final week of the season. That's an accomplishment. It's not the end point. It's not the finish line. It's not the full accomplishment that you hoped for, but it's an accomplishment. And that leads me to number 3 on my list of 10 good things about Pitt basketball this year. I'm counting down. It's not really a ranking, but I'm counting down anyway. It's just overall relevance. I mean, like, for the better part of this season, for certainly the better part of 2 months, people were talking about Pitt nationally, in the ACC and in college basketball. And whether it was Pitt fans badgering national writers for not giving Pitt more respect, whether it was, I think you found Pitt in these conversations when people will talk about who got left out of the polls this week, or who should have been moved up, or who are the voters sleeping on. Pitt was a team that got talked about. And we're here at the end of the season. We're talking about NCAA tournament teams. We're talking about the bubble and the 11 seeds and the 10 seeds and the first 4 in and the first buys and the first 4 out and all these different things. And we're talking about Pitt. Pitt is part of the national college basketball conversation once again. And I said this about Pitt a few years ago, maybe after Capel's second year. Somebody asked me, what do you think of the job that Jeff Capel's doing? I said, one of the big challenges is that Pitt is not a blue blood basketball program. And when you're not a blue blood, you can stay on the radar and be relevant if you're winning. People will pay attention to you nationally, recruits, TV, talking heads, all these. You'll be on the radar nationally as long as you're winning. But once you stop winning, people are going to stop paying attention to you. And people are going to maybe almost forget that you exist. And Pitt spent 6 years in the wilderness. I mean, really, 6 years in the wilderness, where the only time anybody talked about them nationally was as the butt of a joke. They went 0-18 in the ACC. Kevin Stallings yelled at the fans. I mean, that was it. That was the extent of Pitt's national relevance. They were a punchline. But not this year. This year, they were in the conversation. They were part of the conversation of notable top teams in college basketball, notable top teams in the ACC, and notable top teams in NCAA. And I don't think that, I think that's easy to lose sight of. I think it's easy to lose sight of how significant that is. But I mean, remember what it was like 2 years ago, 4 years ago, when just nobody cared. People care now. And part of your great disappointment about how this season ended is a reflection of that. Of how they raised the bar, of how they climbed the ladder and became one of the more notable, prominent teams in the ACC this season. It became a team that national writers were thinking about every week because they heard from you complaining about Pitt not getting ranked and they were paying attention to it. Pitt was relevant this year. All right. Number 2 on my list of 10 good things about Pitt. And this one just, you'll remember this. If you were there, you remember it. The Fish shot, the Aiden Fish shot, that is a memory that every player on that team, every coach on that staff, and every person in that building is going to remember Aiden Fish knocking down a crossover layup at the end of the Syracuse game. That place erupted as loud as it erupted at the end of the Miami game or the Virginia game or the North Carolina game. I mean, it was booming in there. And it was a great celebration of Pitt basketball. It was a great celebration of everything this program has been. It was a great celebration of everything this team has been this season. And it all came together. It all culminated with Aiden Fish making that shot. I mean, that's something about this season that, I think it stands out as one of the key memories of this season. And it's something that I think if you're a Pitt fan, how do you not smile when you think about 12,000 people plus, including, players and everybody just screaming bloody murder at that kid making that shot. And that brings me to number 1. The number 1 good thing about Pitt basketball this year. It was fun again. All these things we're talking about, the relevance and the 20 wins and the transfers and Federico and the Diaz-Graham twins and Aiden Fish making that shot and the coach of the year and the 6th man of the year, all these different things. It was fun. It was fun to watch Pitt basketball again this year. It was fun to cover Pitt basketball again this year. It was fun to follow this program. It was fun to see these guys develop. It was fun to watch this team play. They were, when they were at their best, and even sometimes when they weren't, they were fun to watch because they genuinely liked playing with each other. They genuinely liked each other, and they had a good time, and they played a fun, exciting style of basketball. It was fun, and they were relevant. They were playing games that mattered, playing games they had to win to stay on top of the ACC. It was fun again. It reminded us of what it was like in the 2000s, and heading into, the first decade of this century. It was a flashback to those days. And I don't think we should forget that. Yeah, no, the Duke game wasn't fun. The Miami game wasn't fun. The Notre Dame game wasn't fun. The Michigan game and the West Virginia game weren't fun. But on the whole, this season should have brought back some of the joy of Pitt basketball for you. It should have been fun like you haven't. You should have had fun with this Pitt basketball season. You should have enjoyed this Pitt basketball season in a way that you haven't enjoyed a Pitt basketball season or had fun in a Pitt basketball season in 7 years or more. Because I don't even think those last couple of years of the Jamie Dixon era were that much fun. I feel like there was a real. It was the doldrums, even when they were winning or going to the NCAA tournament in the 2015-16 season. Like, it's been close to 10 years since it's been fun. Pretty much over the course of a season. So we'll find out what happens on Sunday night. By the next time we talk, we'll know if Pitt's going to the NCAA tournament or the NIT. And then we'll move forward from there. But I don't think we should lose sight of what they've done so far. I don't think we should lose sight of how far they've come and how far, how much they did and how much they accomplished this season. So think about that as you head into the weekend. It is the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend, right? It's Friday. Get through this last day, and then you're into the weekend. Should be I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend that. I'm not even going to pretend like I looked at the weather app to figure out the weather before this. But I hope you have a great weekend, though. It's been some kind of week. The Georgia Tech game was one thing. The Duke game was another. And now we just wait and see. Watch some basketball. Enjoy basketball. And then on Sunday night, we'll tune into the Selection Sunday show. We'll find out Pitt's fate. But thanks for watching the Morning Pitt this week. Thanks for watching all the post-game shows that we did on Wednesday and Thursday. Those were a lot of fun, even when it wasn't. And, thanks for watching the Morning Pitt today. We appreciate it. Hope you had a great week. Hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend. And we'll be back to talk about Pitt's NCAA tournament fate next Monday, on Monday, on the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.